Hi, this is Doug Schneider. Welcome back to Real Hi-Fi. When I finished filming the previous episode, which was about, hey, if you want to rip to wave and use way more drive space than, say, FLAC will take, by all means do it with my blessing, I looked at this particular release of the Trinity Session by Canada's Cowboy Junkies and thought, I have to do a video about why this particular release is so good for evaluating the bass performance of a loudspeaker. So I kept the camera rolling. Now, if you noticed, I said this particular release, and I'm talking about this particular CD, which is a Canadian pressing from back in 1988. I have heard other CD pressings of the Trinity Session that have not had nearly the bass weight, and I think these have been American pressings, and people have questioned, they say, I don't hear the deep bass you hear, and I've listened to those CDs, and I'm like, you're right, it's not there, and I have no idea why. We're talking not a subtle difference. We're talking shelved off at 50 hertz versus bass down to about 20 hertz out of this. So when I'm saying this is one of the best releases to evaluate bass, I'm talking about this particular release. Not the new vinyl release either. That has had the bass deliberately curtailed by its producer, Peter J. Moore, who I know very well, because he said he wanted to remove those amusical sounds. Those amusical sounds are those deep, deep frequencies, primarily room sounds, that I use to evaluate the bass on a speaker. And he said he didn't feel they were important for the musical message. So the new vinyl remaster, it doesn't have that deep bass either. Now, why I feel I can talk confidently about this recording is because, one, I've played it well over 1,000 times. Two, I know the producer, Peter J. Moore, very well, and we've talked at length about it, in particular, the bass performance aspect of it. Three, we produced videos about this album at the actual location it was recorded. That's the Church of the Holy Trinity in downtown Toronto, Canada. The album was recorded there in 1987 in one day. Well, kind of one day. Little tidbit of information. Most of it was recorded in one day, but Moore told me that they forgot to record the first track, Mining for Gold. So we went back with Margot Timmons, the lead singer, a week later to record just that track, which she sings a cappella. Okay, now about that bass, there are two main things. The first, and actually less important thing, is the bass depth. Like I said, this release has super deep bass. I think it's going pretty close down to 20 hertz, what's considered the bottom of the audio band. It might be room sounds and whatnot, but it's deep, swelling, powerful bass. And if your speakers are truly full range and can really reproduce the bottom octave, you should be able to hear those sounds coming out of your speakers. So for full range performance, at least in the bass, that's one of the reasons. The other thing, and I consider it even more important because not all speakers can produce that super deep bass, but all of them should be able to produce the upper bass, is the relative level of the bass they can produce, the speakers, to the mid-range. And this is something I had to guess at for many years, but I was able to confirm with Peter J. Moore when I got to know him well that I was exactly right, because it's what he wrestled with recording this. Getting just the right bass weight to the mid-range. And what I always focus on are Margot Timmons' vocals throughout all the tracks. Is the bass clouding those vocals? If it is, there's too much, the elevation of the bass out of the speakers. It could be just the upper bass, but is it infringing on the mid-range? But if there's not enough bass, the mid-range might be really clear, but you'll miss that room swelling. That's what I call it. It feels like the room is breathing almost, sound that this recording can give you. So too much bass, too little bass, and it's a really delicate balancing act, and I know speaker makers have trouble dialing that in, but this recording can tell me, did they get it exactly there? By the way, something I just alluded to is something I want to state more explicitly, and that is, I'm not talking about one particular track on this disc. You can use any of the tracks, okay? They were all, except for that first track, which I said he went back with Margot Timmons, recorded the next week. They were all recorded, as far as I know, in the same way once they had the whole setup complete and in the same location. So you can really pick out any of the tracks and listen for what I'm talking about. But if you do want me to recommend just one track, go to track 10, Sweet Jane. It'll tell you all that I'm talking about in terms of what you'll hear. Yes, that track is by Lou Reed, which is why I wore this shirt in the first place. And here's a final bit of trivia on this album. When the album first came out, Lou Reed reportedly said it was his favorite version of his song. High praise. I hope this helped. I hope you can find this CD released, this particular one. You gotta get it exactly. Thank you for watching.